Blood stained the diner's checkered floor, pooling around a shattered porcelain cup. Gunfire had shattered the midnight quiet, but nobody expected a penniless waitress to dive in front of a hunted syndicate heir. She closed her eyes, expecting death, only to awaken bound by a diamond ring and a ruthless vow. Rain lashed against the greasy, neon-lit windows of Sullivan's counter on Harrison Avenue, casting long, distorted shadows across the linoleum floor. It was 2:15 a.m. on a Tuesday in Boston, the kind of hour reserved for insomniacs, exhausted shift workers, and people who had nowhere else to be. Harper Quinn belonged to the second category. At 23, her life was an endless loop of refilling coffee mugs, scraping dried eggs off cheap porcelain, and meticulously calculating how many tips she needed to keep her mother in the private wing of the Crestview Care Facility. The bell above the door chimed, cutting through the low hum of the ancient refrigerator. Harper didn't look up from wiping down the counter right away. When she finally did, she blinked in surprise. Sitting in the corner booth, swinging his legs with innocent nonchalance, was a boy no older than 7. He was entirely out of place. While Sullivan's usually attracted patrons in damp windbreakers or faded denim, this child wore a miniature, impeccably tailored navy suit. His dark, intelligent eyes scanned the menu, though his feet couldn't even touch the floor. Harper frowned, wiping her hands on her apron as she walked over. "Hey there, buddy," she said gently, her voice softening. "It's a little late for you to be out, isn't it? Where are your parents?" The boy looked up, his expression startlingly stoic for a child. "I slipped away. The men watching me are very boring. I wanted cherry pie." He spoke with a refined, precise cadence. "Do you have cherry pie?" Harper hesitated, glancing out the rain-slicked window to see if a frantic mother was pacing the pavement. Nothing. Just the empty, glistening street. "We do," she said slowly. "But I think I need to call someone for you. What's your name?" "Mateo," the boy replied, tapping a fork against the table. "And I have money." He reached into his small pocket and pulled out a crisp, folded $100 bill, laying it flat on the Formica table. Harper stared at the bill, then at the boy. Something was terribly wrong here. Before she could ask for a phone number, the diner bell chimed again. This time, the atmosphere in the room instantly plummeted. 2 men stepped inside. They were built like freight trains, wearing heavy, dark overcoats that dripped rainwater onto the floor. But it wasn't their size that made Harper's blood run cold. It was the chilling, dead-eyed focus with which they scanned the room. Their eyes locked onto the corner booth. Onto Mateo. "Found the little rat," one of them muttered, reaching inside his coat. Time seemed to fracture, slowing down to a torturous crawl. Harper saw the glint of steel. She saw the heavy, suppressed barrel of a handgun being drawn, leveled directly at the 7-year-old boy who was just looking for a slice of cherry pie. Mateo froze, his dark eyes widening in sudden, paralyzing terror. Harper didn't think. There was no conscious decision, no weighing of her own life against the boy's. It was a raw, primal instinct. "Get down," Harper screamed. She threw herself across the narrow aisle, lunging toward the booth. She grabbed Mateo by his small shoulders, shoving him violently down into the space beneath the table, just as a deafening crack split the air. A sledgehammer of pure burning agony slammed into Harper's right shoulder, tearing through her collarbone. The sheer force of the impact spun her around, sending her crashing into the table. Glass shattered. Plates exploded into jagged shrapnel. Another shot rang out, blowing a hole through the vinyl seat inches from her head. Harper collapsed onto the floor, pulling Matteo beneath her own bleeding body, shielding him with every ounce of her weight. The boy was shaking violently, his small hands clutching her apron. "Stay down." Harper choked out her mouth, tasting like copper. Before the gunman could finish the job, the diner's front windows completely blew out. A sleek black SUV had jumped the curb, smashing through the glass facade. 3 men in tactical gear poured out of the vehicle before it even fully stopped opening fire on the 2 assassins. The diner erupted into a war zone. The sound of rapid gunfire, screaming metal, and shattering glass was deafening. Harper couldn't scream. The pain in her chest was a roaring fire, spreading rapidly, pulling her down into a suffocating darkness. Through her fading vision, she saw a pair of expensive Italian leather shoes step over the bodies of the dead assassins. A man crouched down beside her. He was tall, his features obscured by the shadows, but she felt his large, calloused hand gently pull Matteo from her grasp. "You're safe, fratellino," a deep, gravelly voice whispered to the boy. Then the man looked down at Harper. His striking, glacial blue eyes locked onto her fading ones. "You saved him," the man said, his voice laced with a dangerous intensity. "Get the medic now." Harper tried to speak, to ask about the cherry pie, to mention her mother's nursing home bill, but her lungs refused to fill with air. The edges of her vision turned black, and the chaotic world of Sullivan's counter faded into absolute nothingness. Harper awoke to the steady, rhythmic beeping of a heart monitor. She didn't open her eyes immediately. Her body felt impossibly heavy, anchored to a mattress that was far too soft to belong to Massachusetts General Hospital. The air smelled of expensive, crisp linen, and a faint hint of masculine cedarwood entirely devoid of the sterile bleach scent of a public ward. When she finally forced her eyelids open, the light blinded her for a moment. As her vision cleared, she found herself staring up at an intricately painted fresco ceiling. She was lying in a massive 4-poster bed draped in dark silk. Intravenous tubes snaked from her left arm to a state-of-the-art medical console beside the bed. Her right shoulder was heavily bandaged, emitting a dull, throbbing ache that was barely kept at bay by whatever narcotics were pumping through her veins. "You've been unconscious for 3 days," Harper gasped, turning her head toward the sound of the voice. The sudden movement sent a sharp spike of pain down her chest. Sitting in a leather armchair in the corner of the cavernous, dimly lit room was a man. It was the man from the diner. Even sitting still, he radiated an aura of terrifying authority. He wore a crisp white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle and faint dark ink. His face was a study in ruthless geometry, sharp jawline, aristocratic nose, and those same glacial blue eyes that had watched her bleed on the diner floor. "Where?" Harper's voice was a dry, raspy croak. "Where am I?" "The boy, Matteo." "Matteo is safe thanks to you," the man said, standing up. He moved with the silent, predatory grace of a large cat. He poured a glass of water from a crystal carafe on the nightstand and held it to her lips. Harper drank greedily, her hands trembling. "I am Dante Esposito," he said, stepping back once she had finished. "And you are currently in my private estate in the Berkshires. The medical equipment is standard. Dr. Aris Pappas A private surgeon I keep on retainer extracted the bullet from your shoulder. It narrowly missed your subclavian artery. You are very lucky, Harper Quinn. Harper's mind spun. Dante Esposito. The name echoed in the back of her mind like a warning bell. Anyone who had lived in Boston long enough knew the rumors. The Esposito family ran the shipyards, the unions, and a vast, shadowy syndicate that stretched down the East Coast. "You're the mob," she whispered, her heart rate accelerating, causing the monitor beside her to beep faster. "I need to leave. I have to go back. My mother, your mother's outstanding balance at Crestview, has been paid in full for the next 10 years, Dante interrupted smoothly. "A token of my gratitude for saving my little brother's life." Harper stared at him, stunned, into silence. 10 years. That was hundreds of thousands of dollars. Thank you," she stammered. "But I still need to go home." Dante's expression darkened. He walked to the edge of the bed, looking down at her with a mixture of intense gratitude and cold calculation. "That, unfortunately, is impossible." "What do you mean impossible? I'm grateful for the medical help. But you can't keep me here. I'm a citizen. I haven't done anything wrong." "You did the bravest thing I have ever witnessed," Dante said, softly leaning closer. "But in doing so, you stepped into a war you know nothing about. The men who tried to kill Matteo worked for Lorenzo Costa. Costa is the head of a rival faction on the commission. His men failed, but the diner's security cameras were compromised before my team wiped the servers. Costa knows exactly what you look like. He knows you intervened." Harper felt the blood drain from her face. "So I'm just a waitress. I don't know anything." "To Costa, you are a loose end. You are a vulnerability to my family because you can identify his hitmen, and more importantly, he knows you are someone I owe a life debt to. If you walk out of this estate, you will be dead within 48 hours. They will use you to hurt me, to drag Matteo out of hiding." Panic flared in Harper's chest. "Then give me a new identity, witness protection. Something. The government is infiltrated. The police are on Costa's payroll," Dante stated matter-of-factly. "There is only one place in this world where you are completely, undeniably untouchable. And that is within the inner circle of the Esposito syndicate. But the Commission's laws are strict. I cannot assign absolute syndicate-funded protection to a civilian. I cannot mobilize my entire army for a waitress." Harper gripped the silk sheets, her breathing shallow. "So what are you saying? You brought me here to let me die." "No," Dante said, his voice dropping an octave. "I brought you here to save your life. Look at your left hand." Harper frowned, confused by the pivot. She slowly raised her left hand, which felt unusually heavy. Her breath hitched. Resting on her ring finger was a massive, flawless, emerald-cut diamond flanked by 2 deep blue sapphires. It was a ring fit for royalty, heavy and cold against her skin. "What is this?" She breathed, her eyes darting from the diamond to Dante's unreadable face. "By the laws of the Commission, the only woman I can plunge this city into a bloodbath to protect is my wife," Dante said, his tone resolute, as if he were discussing a business merger rather than a human life. "While you were in surgery, I had Judge Thomas Gallagher, a man who owes me heavily, sign and expedite a marriage license. The paperwork was backdated." Harper's mind flatlined. The monitors beside her began to blare, a rapid, frantic rhythm. You forged a marriage to me. You are legally Harper Esposito." Dante confirmed, his blue eyes locking onto hers, unyielding. You are the wife of the head of the Esposito syndicate. As of 3 days ago, you are the matriarch of the most dangerous family in New England. If Costa touches a single hair on your head, it is an act of war against the entire commission. You're insane, Harper shouted, wincing as the pain in her shoulder flared violently. You can't just marry someone who is unconscious. That's illegal. That's kidnapping. It is survival, Dante corrected coldly. You sacrificed yourself for my blood. I protect my own. You will stay in this estate. You will learn the rules of this world. You will act as my wife in public when necessary, and in return, you will live, and your mother will be treated like a queen. Harper stared at the monstrous diamond on her hand, the reality of her nightmare crashing down on her. She had survived a bullet only to wake up shackled to a mafia boss. She was a prisoner in a gilded cage bound by a forged signature and a diamond ring. Dante turned toward the heavy mahogany doors, pausing just before he exited the room. Rest, Harper. Tomorrow your training begins. Costa is already hunting for the waitress from the diner. We need to make sure he only finds a queen. The ensuing weeks blurred into a grueling regimen of physical rehabilitation and psychological conditioning. Harper's world shrank to the sprawling, high-walled boundaries of the Berkshire estate. Her mornings belonged to Dr. Aris Pappas, who pushed her through agonizing physical therapy sessions until her shoulder regained its mobility. Her afternoons, however, were dictated by Gideon Hayes Dante's chief enforcer, a man whose scarred face and military precision terrified her on day one, but who quickly became her most vital instructor. Gideon did not teach her how to pour tea or host charity luncheons. He taught her how to disassemble and clean a compact 9mm Glock blindfolded. He taught her how to identify the subtle bulges of concealed weapons beneath tailored suits, and how to memorize the exits of any room she entered within 3 seconds. You are a target now, Mrs. Esposito. Gideon told her one rainy afternoon in the estate's underground firing range, the smell of cordite hanging heavy in the air. A king is protected by his pawns, but a queen must be the most dangerous piece on the board. Dante remained a peripheral, haunting presence during her recovery. He was a phantom of the night, returning to the estate at odd hours, his white shirts often smelling of cigar smoke and copper. Yet despite his brutal schedule, running a criminal empire on the brink of war, he never failed to visit her wing of the house before dawn. He rarely spoke during these visits, choosing instead to stand in the doorway, his glacial blue eyes studying her with an intensity that made Harper's pulse hammer against her ribs. It was a suffocating, intoxicating tension. The forged marriage certificate in the vault downstairs was a business transaction, but the way he looked at her felt dangerously real. The only true comfort Harper found was in Matteo. The young boy shadowed her whenever his tutors allowed, bringing her books from the library and sitting silently by her side while she read. He never spoke of the diner, but the tight, desperate way he hugged her waist spoke volumes. She had saved his life, and in the cold, transactional world of the Mafia that forged an unbreakable blood bond, the illusion of safety shattered on a crisp Thursday morning. Dante entered the solarium while Harper was having breakfast with Matteo. His face was carved from granite, his jaw tight. "Lorenzo Costa is forcing my hand," Dante announced, dismissing the armed guards at the door with a flick of his wrist. He has rallied the Eastern factions. He claims my marriage is a sham, a desperate ploy to shield a civilian witness. He has called for a tribunal at the annual Mayflower Society Gala this weekend. Harper set her coffee cup down her hand, trembling slightly. A tribunal. It is an old commission tradition, Dante explained, sitting across from her. A neutral ground where grievances are aired before the heads of the 5 major families. If Costa can prove you are not truly my wife, if he can prove you are just a terrified waitress playing dress-up, the commission will strip you of your immunity. He will be given permission to execute you. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced Harper's chest. How do we prove it's real? Dante's gaze dropped to her lips for a fraction of a second before returning to her eyes. We convince them. You will walk into a room filled with murderers, thieves, and corrupt politicians, and you will show them that you belong at my side. You will show no fear. You will be the undisputed queen of the Esposito Syndicate. 2 nights later, Harper stood before a floor-to-ceiling mirror in the master suite. She barely recognized the woman reflecting back at her. The tired, flour-dusted waitress from Sullivan's counter was gone. In her place stood a striking, lethal aristocrat. She wore a backless, blood-red silk gown that cascaded to the floor, tailored to conceal the thin Kevlar-lined vest beneath the bodice. A diamond choker, heavier than her old life's entire net worth, rested against her throat. Her right shoulder, though, still bearing a raw scar, was proudly displayed. Dante stepped into the room, dressed in a flawless midnight blue tuxedo. He stopped his breath, hitching slightly as he took her in. For the first time, the cold, calculating syndicate boss looked entirely disarmed. You look... Dante trailed off, stepping closer, until she could feel the heat radiating from him. He reached out, his calloused thumb gently tracing the line of her jaw. They will not doubt you. They will fear you. I am terrified. Harper whispered, her facade cracking for a moment. Do not be, he murmured, his voice a dark velvet promise. He leaned down, his lips brushing the shell of her ear. If anyone in that room dares to look at you with anything less than absolute respect, I will burn the building to the ground with them inside. The gala was held at the historic Copley Plaza Hotel in downtown Boston. The ballroom was a sea of crystal chandeliers, flowing champagne, and deadly secrets. High-ranking politicians, including District Attorney Robert Fitzgerald, mingled seamlessly with ruthless cartel operators. It was a terrifying display of how deeply the rot went. When Dante and Harper entered the room, fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. Hundreds of eyes turned toward them. Harper locked her jaw, channeled every ounce of Gideon's training, and glided forward. She placed her hand over Dante's forearm, not clinging to him for support, but walking in perfect, unyielding tandem. Through the parting crowd, Lorenzo Costa emerged. He was an older man, leaning on a silver-tipped cane, his smile slick and predatory. Dante. Costa purred his eyes, sliding to Harper with unconcealed malice. And this must be the infamous bride, a sudden wedding for such a humble girl. My wife is not accustomed to being addressed by subordinates, Lorenzo. Dante cut in his voice, freezing the air around them. Costa chuckled, though his eyes remained dead. Subordinates. We are equals, Dante, and equals must abide by the rules. The girl is a witness. She doesn't belong in this world. The commission will see through this little theater of yours tonight. She is an Esposito, Dante growled, stepping into Costa's personal space. Test that, and you will not leave this hotel breathing." The tension in the ballroom was a coiled spring, ready to snap. Harper maintained her icy composure, though beneath the silk gown her heart was hammering, a frantic rhythm. Dante led her to a private alcove near the terrace doors, his hand resting protectively at the small of her back. "You are doing perfectly," Dante murmured, taking 2 glasses of champagne from a passing waiter. "The tribunal convenes in the executive suite in 10 minutes. We just need to hold the line." Before Harper could reply, the earpiece hidden in Dante's ear crackled. His expression instantly darkened, shifting from a protective husband to a ruthless commander. "Gideon," Dante snapped quietly. "What is it?" Harper watched Dante's eyes widen in a rare display of shock. "Move the cars to the loading dock. Now." He grabbed Harper's arm, his grip tight but not bruising. "We are leaving. It's a trap. Costa didn't call the tribunal to challenge our marriage. He called it to get all my loyal captains into one room." "What's happening?" Harper asked, lifting her heavy silk skirt as Dante pulled her toward the service corridor. "The district attorney sold us out." Dante gritted his teeth, kicking open a heavy fire door. "Fitzgerald pulled the police perimeter. Costa's men are swarming the hotel." They burst into the dimly lit concrete service hallway. The sound of distant suppressed gunfire echoed from the upper floors. Costa wasn't trying to win a legal mafia argument. He was executing a coup. "Dante," a voice echoed from the far end of the corridor. It was Gideon. The enforcer was running toward them, a submachine gun strapped to his chest. They breached the lobby. "We need to take the freight elevator to the basement." Dante nodded, pushing Harper behind him. They sprinted toward the heavy metal doors of the freight elevator. Gideon jammed the call button, his eyes darting down the hallway. "They took out my men in the garage." Gideon reported, his breathing heavy. "It's a bloodbath, boss. We have to." Suddenly, Gideon's radio hissed, but it wasn't Dante's frequency. It was a private channel. Harper, trained by Gideon himself to notice inconsistencies, saw the enforcer's finger resting near the trigger guard, angled slightly toward Dante's back. A sickening realization hit her. A king is protected by his pawns, but a queen must be the most dangerous piece on the board. "Dante, look out!" Harper screamed. She didn't hesitate. Reaching beneath the slit of her gown, she withdrew the compact 9mm she had strapped to her thigh. Gideon spun around his face, twisting in betrayal, raising his weapon toward Dante. Harper fired twice. The deafening cracks of the gunshots amplified in the narrow concrete hallway. Gideon stumbled backward, the submachine gun falling from his grasp as 2 crimson blossoms bloomed on his tactical vest. He collapsed against the elevator doors, sliding to the floor dead before he truly registered that the waitress had bested him. Dante spun around, his own weapon drawn, staring at Gideon's body, then at Harper. She stood there, trembling, the gun still raised, smoke curling from the barrel. "He was going to shoot you." Harper gasped, the adrenaline making her vision swim. He was the mole. Dante didn't say a word. He stepped forward, taking the gun from her shaking hands, and pulled her into a fierce, crushing embrace. He buried his face in her neck, breathing in the scent of her perfume mixed with gunpowder. "You saved me," he whispered, his voice cracking with an emotion he had long since buried. Again. The freight elevator dinged, the doors sliding open to reveal 3 of Costa's heavily armed men. Dante didn't flinch. With lethal, terrifying speed, he pushed Harper behind the steel frame of the doorway and unleashed a hail of returning fire. The skirmish was brutal and agonizingly loud, but Dante moved like a force of nature, driven by a desperate need to protect the woman cowering behind him. Within seconds, the hallway fell silent. Dante reloaded his weapon, stepping over the bodies, and took Harper's hand. "Let's end this." They didn't run to the garage. Dante led her back up the stairs, straight toward the executive suite, where Costa was waiting to hear the news of Dante's assassination. When Dante kicked open the mahogany double doors of the suite, Costa was pouring himself a glass of scotch. The older boss froze the glass, slipping from his fingers and shattering on the Persian rug. "Your mole is dead, Lorenzo." Dante stated his gun, leveled directly at Costa's chest. "And your coup is over." Costa backed away, raising his hands, his eyes darting to Harper. She stood beside Dante, her gown stained with soot and blood, her head held high. She wasn't acting anymore. She was exactly where she belonged. "You can't kill me, Dante," Costa stammered, sweating profusely. "The commission." "The commission belongs to my wife now," Dante interrupted coldly. He pulled the trigger. The empire shifted on its axis in that single moment. By dawn, the Esposito Syndicate had eradicated Costa's remaining loyalists. The city of Boston woke up to a new, unspoken order. Weeks later, Harper stood on the balcony of the Berkshire estate, watching the sun rise over the manicured gardens. Matteo was playing in the grass below, laughing as a golden retriever chased him around the fountain, strong arms wrapped around her waist from behind. Dante pressed a soft kiss to her bare shoulder, right next to the faded scar where a bullet had once tried to end her life. "The council has officially recognized your status," Dante murmured against her skin. "There are no more questions, no more tribunals. You are untouchable." Harper leaned back into his solid chest, resting her hand over his. The heavy diamond ring caught the morning light, scattering prisms across the stone railing. She turned her head, looking up into his glacial eyes, which were now filled with a burning, undeniable devotion. "It was never a fake marriage, was it?" she asked softly. Dante smiled, a rare, genuine expression that transformed his face. "The moment you threw yourself over my brother on that diner floor, my soul was bound to yours, Harper. The paperwork was just a formality." Harper turned fully into his embrace, wrapping her arms around his neck. The terrified waitress was dead buried under the shattered glass of Sullivan's counter. In her place stood Harper Esposito, a woman forged in fire, bound by blood, and fiercely ruling the darkness beside the man who owned her heart. Thank you for watching this incredible story of loyalty, betrayal, and unexpected love. If you enjoyed seeing Harper's journey from a humble waitress to the unstoppable queen of the syndicate, please hit that like button and share this video with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more thrilling mafia romance stories and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update.